at lesson 10. Yesterday we drew rectangle A, didn't we? Okay, and on rectangle A, you might have to look at your chart, but how many units long was it? And I want to remind you something. On these drawings, the length is going to be at the top and the width is going to be at the side. Okay? So how long was rectangle A?
3.
3 units long. Just write a 3. It's going to be so simple. And how many units wide was it?
2.
And so the total was 6 units squared, correct?
Yes.
And we did this, didn't we?
Do we have to draw that?
No, you already drew it yesterday, so you just look at your drawing, okay? Rectangle B was a little different because we had something down at the bottom.
Half.
We had a half. And you even labeled like this, didn't you? Okay? And the reason we labeled is because it's harder to figure out. So this one, now I want to show you a different way to write it than yesterday. You don't have to change yours, but I want you to pay attention because on your exit ticket and on Zern, they do it this way. So eyes up here, please. Okay? So they put the 2 units there, and then they put a half unit here. And they're wanting you to add those up. Okay? Now this one is 3 units, correct? So how long is rectangle B?
3 units.
And don't forget length and width, okay? And then how wide is it?
2.5.
2.5. And when we added those all up, we said, okay, a half plus a half is a whole. So what did we get for our total?
7 and 1/2.
7.5. Do you remember how we got that?
Yeah.
There's 6 plus 1 more plus a half. Okay? Rectangle C, was it tall and skinny? Okay. And I'm not doing it perfect, am I? Show me rectangle C on yours right here. Okay. So we had this, didn't we? And it was 5 units. And this was 1 unit
And 1/2.
and a half units. So they're wanting you to add those up. So 5 units long. No. Did I put that in the wrong place?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
1.5 units long because length is at the top. And 5 units wide. And we had 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then all these halves, didn't we? And the halves, did we put 2 halves together to make a whole? Yeah, we did. So right here,
7 and 1/2.
7 and 1/2. Okay, so let's keep going. Rectangle D. Was it almost a square? I have a pretty good memory, don't I? Okay, so then it looked like this and that. And these were 1, and this was 3/4. Okay. So over on the side, well, we've got 2 units for the length, right? Okay. And we've got 1 unit, and then we've got 3/4 units. So that's 1 plus 3/4. 1 and 3/4. Okay? Now the thing about this one is, if I add 3/4 plus 3/4, I'm not going to get 1 whole. We did it 2 ways. We did 6/4 would be equal to 1 and 2/4, which would be 1 and a half, right? So another way to do it is to memorize. Like when you're cooking and it calls for a 3/4 cup of sugar and you're doubling your recipe. I just memorized when I was young because I like to make chocolate chip cookies, and it calls for 3/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar. But we all know that 1 recipe of chocolate chip cookies is not enough, is it? You need to double the recipe. So I remembered right away when I was a kid, hey, 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5 cups of sugar if I'm doubling the recipe. Okay? And Tegan said, well, you can visualize those 3/4 cups. They about go up to there, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay? And he said, you're just going to take 1/4 out of this one and use it to fill up 1. And then how many do you have left? 2/4, which is a half, okay? So if I'm going to add this whole thing up, I'll add 1 plus 1 plus 1.5. What's that? 3.5, okay? All right, rectangle E. Now, don't you want some chocolate chip cookies?
Yes.
So do I. Okay, so rectangle E, tall and skinny?
Yes.
I think I remember it. 3/4 at the top
Yeah.
and 5 on the side? Okay. And did we use that 1.5 strategy to help us? We sort of did. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is 1.5, correct? And that's 1.5. 1.5 plus 1.5,
Equals 3.
3. Because 1 plus 1 and then a half plus a half is a whole. So it's 3 and 3/4 is my total. 5 units wide, 3/4 units long. Okay? Another way to do this, and I don't know if I had you write it down, but you could just do repeated addition. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 fourths. And then you could use that long division. Everybody write this down. Practice the long division to get a mixed number. See if you get 3 and 3/4. Did you? Because I can take my remainder, put it on top of my divisor, and it gives me, 3/4 for a fraction. Okay, how are we doing? Good? Okay, so on your exit ticket, this is all you're going to be asked to do. You're not even going to have to draw it, okay? So let's do some problems that are going to be a little bit more fun. How about this one right here about the rectangle? Let's start with it. So number 6, we're already on number 6. Okay. So it says the rectangle to the right is composed of squares that measure 2 1/4 inches on each side. What is the area in square inches? Explain your thinking using pictures and numbers. Okay? And we don't get to count their picture. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I want you to go ahead and draw an arrow here, because this side length of that square is 2 1/4 inches, and label it. And then draw an arrow here to show that this side length is 2 1/4 inches. Okay? Now, I'm going to think about area, right? Length times width. So we have the length here and the width to the side. Okay? Let's figure out what the length would be. Well, what's the length of the drawing without the 2 1/4? 4. So I'm going to take 4 times 2 1/4. And I'm not putting the inches on there right now. I just want to do the math. And I want you to do equals, equals. Trust me on this. Okay? All right. So what this actually means, are you with me? Then where should your eyes be if you're with me? This really means 4 times 2 and 4 times 1/4. Okay? And right over here, I want you to draw a rectangle, maybe a little bigger than that. Okay? And I want you to have a skinny one all the way to the right. That's going to be a 4th. Are you drawing? Okay. And we need 4 rows, so that's going to be 3 lines. And then we've got 2 and a 4th. Now, I need to change how I wrote this. Because I want to keep my length and my width the same. So this is 4, and this is 2 plus 1/4. And that's the problem we just wrote, right?
Yep.
Okay, to figure it out, I just want you to put your 1s in and your 1/4 in and see if you can figure it out, and don't shout out the answer. I want everyone to have a chance to do their own thinking. But don't write the answer once you get it. So you can just look up here once you get the answer. Now I know a half plus a half is a whole, correct? But this is a little different because they're 1/4. So be careful there. Think in your mind, how many fourths would it take to make one whole? Okay? So I'm going to pull a stick. Dara is doing something else. How about for me? He's doing something else. Cadence. What'd you get for your answer for this?
1
So 1/4 plus 1/4
1/4 plus 1/4.
is 1 whole. So we have 8 plus 1 whole. So what's the answer to this? 9 inches. Now, I want to show you how to do it without the drawing, just for the fun of it, okay? So, on the area model, look what I'm doing. I'm multiplying 4 times 2 and 4 times 1/4, right? So, I'm going to have 2 multiplication problems. So write 2 sets of parentheses and you're going to add them together, because didn't we add all this up? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 times 4. Actually, I better turn that around, huh? 4 times 2 and 4 times 1/4. It doesn't really matter which way I do it. So what's 2 times 4?
8.
Okay. And what's 4 times 1/4? 4/4, which is 1 whole, right? So that's how we got 9. Okay? Let's do the width. Oh, the width is really easy. Are you ready for this? Put width equals. And the only thing different on the width is what? The 4 is a 1, 2, 3. So I'm just going to cross off the 4, make it a 3, cross off the bottom one. And I'm going to do 3 copies of 2 and 1/4. So I've got 6 and 3/4. Okay, and am I done? Because it says what is the area.
Yeah.
So now how do I
Put together.
not add it? What's area?
You have to multiply.
Multiply it together, okay? This is complicated. So I'm going to do 9 inches times 6 3/4 inches equals. Now, I don't want to draw that. I don't want to do 54 ones. Do you? No. So I want to do it this way. I want to turn it into 2 multiplication problems. Okay, hold your pencil still. So, that person's gone. George, hey, what 2 multiplication problems do I need to make here?
9 times 6.
Okay, 9 times 6. Write that down. And, do you know the other one? 9 times 3/4. So really, boys and girls, this is like taking this 6 3/4 and decomposing it into 6 plus 3/4. Okay? I have to separate it so I can take 9 times both of them. The only other way to do it is turn this into an improper fraction, and I don't want to mess with that right now. Okay, so let's take a look at how to do this problem. Well, I know 9 times 6 is 54. how am I going to solve 9 times 3/4? We had a sprint on that. We had to go through and do those, and then, Abdiel, do you remember?
Is it 9 times 3?
Yes. And your denominator doesn't change, does it? So I've got to add those two together, but guess what? 54 and 27/4 is not really an answer I want to give. What do I need to do to this improper fraction?
Turn it into a mixed number.
Turn it into a mixed number, so long division. Easiest way. Okay, Jair. 4 times something equals 24. What is it?
6.
Okay. So, rewrite 27/4 as a mixed number for us, Jair.
Oh, 6 and 3/4.
Very good. Can you add those in your head? What's 54 plus 6? 4 plus 6. 60. And 3/4 inches squared, or square inches. Okay? Now, what I did was, I kind of gave you a preview of what the next lesson is going to be, where we multiply these out instead of just count our labels. Okay? Let's do the next one. It's really fun. I have a feeling you're going to get a problem like this. Probably next week sometime on your state assessment. But you can do it. You are well prepared. So I want to start by, let's draw a rectangle, and then I'm going to read this. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read this. It says a rectangle has a perimeter of 35.5 feet. Now, perimeter has a formula. Let's get that written down before we do anything else. You remember what your perimeter is?
Length times
Length plus,
length plus width
times
plus. I mean, plus.
I write it like this. Why do I write it like that?
Because it's doubled.
Because it's doubled. And there's a lot of times where you're going to just have to divide it in half. Okay? Another way to write it, length times 2 plus width times 2. Is that what doubling it means? Okay. So those are two ways to write it. So my perimeter is 35.5 feet all the way around the outside. If the length is 12 feet, what is the area of the rectangle? Now when I was your age, I went, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. But I think you can. So let's start with 35.5. That's the total of all the sides.
35.
Just a minute. Do we have any idea the length of any of these other sides? And I'm going to pull a stick. Jesus, do you know any of these other sides? The bottom. What's the bottom? 12 feet. You know that because these two are exactly the same. And is your width exactly the same?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I could technically figure out the total of these two by subtracting the two I know. Correct? So 35.5 minus what?
No, 24.
24.
Because you have to add
24. So let's figure that out first. Now, an easy way to do it, you want me to remind you? 35.5. Is that 35.5?
Yes.
Minus 24. Did you get 11.5?
Yep.
Okay. So some of you even did that in your head. All right? So 11.5. Now, what that means is, if I add my width plus my width, it's going to be 11.5. So I've got to figure out half of 11.5, and I want you to write that down. There's more than one way to do this. Okay, so if you're George A., or some of you people who think mathematically, unlike me, you're going to think, okay, what's half of a half? Okay, what's half of 11, right? Well, if you're me, you're just going to do the math, okay, because you can't think logically. So I'm going to show you how to do the math, and we'll see if it's the same as what George would have got if he would have just figured it out in his head. And whoever else can, does everybody else have an idea too? Half of a half and half of 11. So half of a half is, and half of 11 is
7.
5 and a half.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so just a minute. I want to do it mathematically, and we'll see if we get the same answer. So mathematically, half of 11 and a half means half times 11 and a half. I'm going to change 11 and a half to an improper fraction. So what's 11 times 2? 22 plus one more. 23 halves. Write that down. I'm not doing this just for myself. I already know how to do it. Okay, now I just have to solve this problem. What's 1 half times 23 halves?
23 halves.
23, 2 times 2?
Fourths.
23 fourths. Okay, so this person is Eurydia. Tell me how to figure out this as a mixed number.
You divide.
I divide 23 divided by 4. What's 23 divided by 4? 4 times 5 equals 20. So my answer as a mixed number is 5 and what, Eurydia? 5 and 3/4. So my width is 5 and 3/4. And my other width, 5 and 3/4. Now the question says, what is the area of the rectangle? So I have my entire rectangle labeled. Lexi, how do I find area? Area equals,
You multiply 5 times 2 and 12 times 2.
okay, so let's get a problem written down first, okay? So I'm going to do 12 times 5 and 3/4. You agree, kids? Okay, because that's my length times my width. Now, Lexi's saying, okay, you're going to split it apart into 2 multiplication problems. So it's going to be 12 times 5, right? And then 12 times, what's my fraction? So 12 times 3/4. Okay, write that down. Now I know 12 times 5 is 60. I think I'm going to start putting my labels on there. Okay? And 12 times 3/4. Let me pull a stick here. George B., you remember how to do that? 12 times 3/4. So I'm going to do 12 times 3. What's that? So 36/4. So what do I have to do now? I'll better pull a stick, huh? Cheney, what do I do now?
Long division.
Long division. What's my long division problem?
30.
Oh, I think I can do that in my head.
Yeah.
What is it?
9.
9. So this is 60 feet plus 9 feet equals
69.
69 feet squared. Okay, let's look at the exit ticket. I like this kind of math. Fractions and mixed numbers. It just makes me happy. Am I weird? Probably. Okay, so boys and girls, there are only 5 points possible. Put your fingers down and look at me. I mean, put your pencils down. Put your fingers down. I'll take that part out of the video. Okay? All right. So here's what the kids did. They went ahead, and I want you to go ahead and label with your ones and your halves, okay? So go ahead and do that now. So it's going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, right? Don't say any answers, please. This is for a grade. So I had several kids do this. Are you ready? What mistake, Emiliana, what mistake? This is correct. And they're probably going to get the right answer. But what's wrong here, Emiliano? I need my length and my width, don't I? So my length means long, and my width means wide. Okay? Now be careful, because they're having you add something together. So, think you can handle it?